I just love how the light hit these buildings.
Me too. It creates such interesting shadows.
Sophia had always believed that great art required great suffering, but watching her mysterious neighbor paint by candlelight at 3 in the morning made her wonder if some masterpieces were born from love instead. For 6 months, she had been secretly observing the brooding artist who lived in the apartment across from hers, never imagining that he had been painting her face from memory every night since the day she moved in. But when a gallery fire destroys all of his work except for the portraits of her, Sophia discovers that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin when two broken souls recognize their missing pieces in each other. Before we dive into Sophia's enchanting journey of art, love, and the magic that happens when two creative souls find each other, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us bring you more captivating romantic drama stories every week. Now, let's discover how one chance encounter changed everything for Sophia Chen and the mysterious artist next door. Sophia Chen had moved to the converted warehouse district of downtown Portland 6 months ago, seeking inspiration and a fresh start after ending a relationship that had slowly drained all the creativity from her soul. At 29, she was a freelance graphic designer who had spent the past 5 years in a sterile suburban apartment with her ex-boyfriend, David, a financial analyst who viewed her artistic ambitions as expensive hobbies rather than legitimate career pursuits. The loft apartment Sophia had found was everything David would have hated. Exposed brick walls, enormous windows that let in floods of natural light, and neighbors who were musicians, writers, and artists rather than accountants and lawyers. The rent was higher than Sophia could comfortably afford, but something about the space had spoken to her creative spirit in a way that made the financial sacrifice feel worthwhile. What Sophia hadn't expected was becoming fascinated by her neighbor in the apartment directly across the courtyard. His windows faced hers across a narrow space filled with fire escapes and hanging gardens, and she had an unobstructed view into his studio whenever his curtains were open. The apartment was clearly an artist's workspace, filled with canvases, easels, and the organized chaos that came with serious creative work. The artist himself was unlike anyone Sophia had ever encountered. He appeared to be in his early 30s, tall and lean, with dark hair that he wore slightly longer than conventional style would dictate. He dressed in paint-stained jeans and worn sweaters, and he moved through his space with the kind of unconscious grace that suggested someone who was completely comfortable in his own skin. But what captivated Sophia most was the intensity with which the artist approached his work. She had observed him painting at all hours of the day and night, sometimes working by the light of dozens of candles when he apparently wanted a different quality of illumination than electric lights could provide. He would stand before his canvases for hours, completely absorbed in his creation, occasionally stepping back to assess his progress before diving back into the work with renewed focus. Sophia told herself that her interest in her neighbor was purely artistic curiosity. As a graphic designer, she appreciated watching a traditional painter at work, and she found his dedication to his craft both inspiring and intimidating. She had never approached her own creative work with the kind of passionate intensity that seemed to drive everything the artist did. What Sophia didn't realize was that her mysterious neighbor had been equally aware of her presence. From the first day she had moved into her apartment, he had noticed the young woman who arranged fresh flowers on her windowsill every week and who danced to music while she worked at her computer. He had been captivated by the way she moved through her space, bringing warmth and life to what had been a sterile loft similar to his own. The artist's name was Gabriel Santos, and he had been living as a recluse for the past 3 years following a devastating exhibition opening that had destroyed both his professional reputation and his personal relationships. Gabriel had been considered one of the most promising young painters in the Pacific Northwest, with a distinctive style that combined classical techniques with contemporary themes. His work had been featured in several prestigious galleries, and critics had praised his ability to capture human emotion with unusual depth and authenticity. But Gabriel's success had come at a personal cost. The art world's demands for constant productivity and self-promotion had gradually eroded his connection to the pure love of creation that had originally drawn him to painting. He had found himself creating works that he thought would sell, rather than pieces that expressed his genuine artistic vision, and the compromise had left him feeling hollow and disconnected from his own talent. The breaking point had come during the opening of what was supposed to be Gabriel's breakthrough solo exhibition at one of Portland's most influential galleries. Gabriel had spent 2 years creating a series of paintings that explored themes of isolation and connection in modern urban life, pouring his heart and soul into work that he believed represented his finest artistic achievement. But on the night of the opening, Gabriel had overheard a conversation between two prominent collectors that had shattered his confidence and his faith in the art world. They had been discussing his paintings not as artistic expressions, but as investment opportunities, analyzing which pieces were most likely to appreciate in value and speculating about whether Gabriel's career trajectory would continue upward or plateau. The realization that his most personal and meaningful work was being evaluated purely in terms of financial return had triggered an emotional breakdown that Gabriel had never fully recovered from. He had left his own opening early, retreated to the studio, and essentially disappeared from the art world that had once celebrated his talent. For 3 years, Gabriel had continued painting, but only for himself. He had stopped exhibiting, stopped seeking gallery representation, and stopped trying to sell his work. He had survived financially by teaching occasional art classes and doing commissioned portraits for private clients. But his true artistic energy had gone into a series of paintings that no one else had ever seen. Those paintings were portraits, dozens of them, all depicting the same subject, the woman who lived in the apartment across from his studio. Gabriel had been painting Sophia's face from memory since the day she had moved in, capturing her in different moods and lighting conditions, exploring the way her expressions changed when she was working, relaxing, or lost in thought. Gabriel told himself that Sophia was simply an ideal model, that her face had the kind of classical bone structure and expressive eyes that any portrait artist would want to paint. But he knew that his obsession with painting her went much deeper than professional interest. Sophia represented something that Gabriel had lost in his disillusionment with the art world: purity, authenticity, and the kind of natural beauty that couldn't be manufactured or marketed. The turning point in their story came on a rainy Thursday evening in November when Sophia was working late on a particularly challenging design project and noticed that Gabriel's studio was dark earlier than usual. She had become so accustomed to the comforting glow of his workspace that its absence felt somehow ominous, and she found herself worrying about whether something had happened to her mysterious neighbor. Sophia's concern was justified. Gabriel had been feeling increasingly isolated and depressed, and that evening he had made the decision to pack up his paintings and leave Portland indefinitely. He had been in the process of carefully wrapping his canvases when he had caught sight of Sophia at her window, illuminated by the soft light from her computer screen as she worked on her designs.
The sight of Sophia, so focused and serene in her creative work, had reminded Gabriel of why he had fallen in love with art in the first place. He had stood watching her for several minutes, remembering the pure joy he had once felt when creating something beautiful, and he had realized that his depression wasn't just about his disillusionment with the art world, but also about his self-imposed isolation from human connection. On impulse, Gabriel had done something he hadn't done in 3 years. He had left his studio and knocked on a neighbor's door. When Sophia opened her apartment door and found the mysterious artist she had been observing for months standing in her hallway, both of them had felt an immediate recognition that went beyond their casual observations of each other. Gabriel had apologized for disturbing Sophia so late in the evening, explaining that he had noticed her light was on and wanted to introduce himself properly, since they had been neighbors for 6 months without ever actually meeting. Sophia had been surprised by Gabriel's visit, but also thrilled to finally have a chance to talk to the person who had unknowingly provided so much inspiration for her own creative work. Gabriel had been struck by how beautiful Sophia was up close, but more than that, he had been impressed by her warmth and genuine interest in getting to know him. They had ended up talking in Sophia's doorway for over an hour, sharing stories about their artistic backgrounds and their reasons for choosing to live in the warehouse district. Sophia had told Gabriel about her recent breakup and her decision to prioritize her creative work over conventional stability. Gabriel had shared some of his history as a painter, though he had kept the details of his retreat from the art world deliberately vague. Both of them had felt an immediate connection that went beyond their shared interest in art, a sense of understanding and recognition that neither of them had experienced with anyone else. When Gabriel had finally returned to his own apartment that night, he had felt more energized and hopeful than he had in years. Instead of packing his paintings, he had spent the rest of the night working on a new portrait of Sophia, this one based on his fresh memories of her expressions and gestures during their conversation. The next day, Sophia had surprised Gabriel by bringing him coffee and homemade muffins as a thank you for the unexpected but delightful conversation they had shared. Gabriel had invited Sophia into his studio for the first time, and she had been amazed by the scope and quality of his work. Gabriel's paintings were unlike anything Sophia had ever seen. His technique was masterful, combining classical realism with a contemporary sensibility that made his subjects seem to pulse with life. His use of color was particularly striking, with rich, complex hues that seemed to glow from within the canvas. What Sophia didn't immediately realize was that many of the paintings in Gabriel's studio were portraits of her. Gabriel had arranged his workspace so that the paintings of Sophia were positioned where she couldn't see them during her visit, not yet ready to reveal the extent of his artistic fascination with her. Instead, Gabriel showed Sophia his landscape paintings and still lifes, works that demonstrated his technical skill without exposing the more personal aspects of his recent artistic focus. Sophia was impressed by Gabriel's talent and moved by the passion and dedication that was evident in every brushstroke. As they talked about art and technique, both Gabriel and Sophia felt their attraction to each other deepening beyond mere physical appeal. Gabriel was drawn to Sophia's intelligence and creativity, her ability to discuss art with both technical knowledge and emotional understanding. Sophia was captivated by Gabriel's intensity and his obvious devotion to his craft, qualities that her ex-boyfriend had never possessed or understood. Over the following weeks, Gabriel and Sophia began spending more time together, sharing meals, attending art exhibitions, and taking long walks through Portland's diverse neighborhoods. Gabriel found that Sophia's presence in his life was rekindling his love for creating art, not for commercial purposes, but for the pure joy of expression and communication. Sophia, for her part, found that her relationship with Gabriel was inspiring her own work in unexpected ways. Her graphic design projects began incorporating more painterly techniques and emotional depth, and she started experimenting with fine art pieces that went beyond her commercial portfolio. The growing intimacy between Gabriel and Sophia was both thrilling and terrifying for both of them. Gabriel had been hurt deeply by the superficiality and competitiveness he had experienced in the art world, and he was afraid that revealing his feelings for Sophia might somehow taint the purity of their connection. Sophia had been burned by David's inability to understand or support her artistic ambitions, and she was cautious about getting involved with another artist who might be equally self-absorbed or unreliable. But despite their fears, neither Gabrielle nor Sophia could deny the depth of their feelings for each other. They had found in each other a kindred spirit, someone who understood the compulsions and challenges of creative work, while also providing emotional support and encouragement. The crisis that brought their relationship to a turning point came on a cold December night when a fire broke out in the building that housed Gabrielle's former gallery. The blaze spread quickly through the old warehouse structure, destroying several art studios and galleries before the fire department could bring it under control. Gabriel received a call from his former gallery owner, Marcus, who informed him that the fire had destroyed a storage unit where Gabriel's unsold paintings from his last exhibition had been kept. 3 years' worth of Gabriel's work, including pieces that had never been exhibited, had been lost in the flames. Gabriel's reaction to the news surprised him. Instead of being devastated by the loss of his paintings, he felt a strange sense of liberation. The destroyed works had been created during the period when he had been most disconnected from his authentic artistic vision, and their loss felt like a symbolic clearing away of a false path he had been pursuing. But there was one aspect of the fire that did concern Gabriel. In his rush to leave the art world behind, he had stored some of his personal paintings in the same facility as his commercial work. Among the destroyed pieces were several early portraits that had been important to his artistic development. What Gabriel didn't tell Sophia was that all of his recent portraits of her were safe in his studio. Those paintings, the work that represented his return to authentic artistic expression, had never left his personal workspace. But Gabriel realized that the fire had given him an opportunity to start fresh, to create new work that fully integrated his technical skills with his renewed passion for art. Gabriel shared the news of the fire with Sophia, and she was immediately sympathetic to his loss. She offered to help him in any way she could, whether that meant assisting with insurance claims, helping him recreate lost works, or simply providing emotional support during a difficult time. Gabriel was moved by Sophia's generosity and understanding. He realized that her response to his crisis was the opposite of how David had reacted to Sophia's artistic challenges. Instead of viewing Gabriel's art as an inconvenience or expense, Sophia saw his creative work as an essential part of who he was and wanted to help protect and nurture it. That night, after they had spent hours talking about the fire and its implications for Gabriel's future artistic direction, Gabriel made a decision that changed everything between them. He told Sophia that there was something he wanted to show her, something that would help her understand how important she had become to him both personally and artistically. Gabriel led Sophia to a section of his studio that she had never seen before, where he had been keeping his portraits of her covered with cloth drapes. With nervous hands, Gabriel pulled away the coverings to reveal dozens of paintings, all depicting Sophia in various poses and settings. Sophia was stunned by what she saw. The paintings were breathtakingly beautiful, capturing not just her physical appearance, but something deeper and more essential about her personality and spirit. Gabriel had painted her laughing, working, sleeping, dancing, and thinking, creating a visual diary of her life that was more intimate and revealing than any photograph could have been. Some of the portraits showed Sophia in realistic detail, while others were more impressionistic, focusing on color and emotion rather than precise representation. All of them demonstrated Gabriel's extraordinary skill as a painter, but more than that, they revealed the depth of his feelings for her and his artistic fascination with her as a subject. Gabriel explained to Sophia that he had been painting her since the day she moved in, initially as an artistic exercise, but gradually as a way of processing his growing feelings for her. He told her that she had become his muse in the truest sense of the word, inspiring him to return to the kind of passionate, authentic artistic work that had originally made him want to become a painter. Sophia was overwhelmed by the revelation that Gabriel had been creating this secret gallery of her portraits. She was flattered and moved by the obvious care and attention he had devoted to each painting, but she was also uncertain about how to respond to such an intense artistic declaration of love. Gabriel could see Sophia's confusion and uncertainty, and he quickly assured her that he hadn't created the paintings to pressure her into a relationship or make her uncomfortable. He explained that painting her had been a private artistic process, that it helped him reconnect with his creativity and his capacity for feeling deeply about another person. Gabriel told Sophia that he was sharing the paintings with her now because he wanted her to understand how profoundly she had impacted his life and his art. He said that whether or not their relationship developed romantically, she had already given him something invaluable by inspiring him to return to authentic artistic expression. As Sophia moved through Gabriel's secret gallery of her portraits, she began to see herself through his eyes. The woman in the paintings was beautiful, but more than that, she was vibrant, intelligent, and creative. Gabriel had captured qualities in her that she hadn't even been sure she possessed, showing her a version of herself that was confident and radiant. Sophia realized that Gabriel's portraits of her were not just artistic works, but also a form of love letter, expressing feelings and perceptions that he might not have been able to communicate in words. She could see in every brushstroke the care and attention he had devoted to understanding and celebrating who she was as a person. When Sophia finally turned to face Gabriel after viewing all of his portraits, she had tears in her eyes. She told him that she had never felt so truly seen and appreciated by another person, and that his paintings had shown her aspects of herself that she had forgotten or never known existed. Sophia confessed to Gabriel that she had been falling in love with him gradually over the weeks they had been spending time together, but that she was afraid to trust her feelings after her painful experience with David. Seeing Gabriel's portraits of her had convinced her that his feelings for her were genuine and deep, based on real understanding and appreciation rather than superficial attraction or convenience. Gabriel was overjoyed by Sophia's response to his paintings and her admission of her own feelings. He told her that creating the portraits had taught him the difference between making art for external validation and creating work that came from a place of authentic emotion and connection. Gabriel explained that Sophia had not only inspired him to return to his artistic calling, but had also shown him what it felt like to love someone completely and unconditionally. He said that painting her had been a way of learning to see beauty and meaning in everyday moments, and that she had taught him that the most profound art came from celebrating the people and experiences that made life worth living. As Gabriel and Sophia held each other, surrounded by the portraits that had brought them together, they both understood that they had found something rare and precious. They had discovered not just romantic love, but also artistic partnership, the kind of creative collaboration that could inspire both of them to produce their best and most meaningful work. In the months that followed, Gabriel and Sophia's relationship deepened, both personally and artistically. Gabriel began creating new work that incorporated Sophia not just as a model, but as a collaborator, painting pieces that combined his traditional techniques with elements inspired by her graphic design background. Sophia, encouraged by Gabriel's belief in her artistic abilities, began exploring fine art painting under his tutelage. She discovered that she had a natural talent for color and composition, and that her background in digital design gave her a unique perspective on traditional artistic techniques. Together, Gabriel and Sophia began planning a joint exhibition that would showcase both Gabriel's return to public artistic life and Sophia's emergence as a fine artist. They envisioned a show that would tell the story of their artistic collaboration and personal relationship, featuring Gabriel's portraits of Sophia alongside new collaborative pieces that neither of them could have created alone. The exhibition, titled Muse and Artist, a Collaboration, opened exactly 1 year after the fire that had destroyed Gabriel's old work and cleared the path for his artistic rebirth. The show was a tremendous success, with critics praising both Gabriel's return to form and Sophia's impressive debut as a painter. But more important than the critical acclaim was what the exhibition represented for Gabriel and Sophia personally. Standing together at the opening, surrounded by the artwork that had grown out of their love for each other, they both understood that they had found their true calling, not just as individual artists, but as creative partners. Gabriel proposed to Sophia in front of the first portrait he had ever painted of her, the work that had begun their unlikely love story. As he knelt before her in the gallery, surrounded by their friends and supporters, Gabriel told Sophia that she had not only become his muse, but also his greatest artistic collaborator and the love of his life. Sophia said yes immediately, knowing that she had found in Gabriel not just a romantic partner, but also someone who understood and celebrated her creative spirit. They had proven that the most beautiful art came not from suffering, but from love, understanding, and the magical connection between two people who could inspire each other to reach new heights of creative expression. The artist's muse next door had become his greatest love and creative partner, and together they had created a love story that was itself a work of art, beautiful, authentic, and capable of inspiring others to believe in the transformative power of love and artistic collaboration.